2025 is shaping up to be a pretty solid year for horror. There's a lot to be excited and maybe even terrified about. Today we are breaking down what we know, what we can expect, and what impact these horror movies will have on the genre for the year. But before we begin, y'all go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can join the spooky gang. Your boy Tech would greatly appreciate it. But with that said, let's go ahead and get it popping. Alright, Spooky Gang, so one of the most anticipated horror movies that is upcoming, and it is right around the corner, that is dropping September 5th, is The Conjuring Last Rites. Given a quick synopsis on this movie, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one last terrifying case involving mysterious entities they must confront. So with this movie is going to be the last installment of the Conjuring universe and franchise. This is easily one of my favorite horror franchises out of all of them. The first two movies in this franchise were just so impactful. So now that we finally get to see what would be considered the end of the franchise, I really hope that they do it right and sort of bring a lot of those elements back from those original first two. Because me personally, I was not that big of a fan of the third one. You know, The Devil Made Me Do It. It just was not hitting the mark for me. Is it a bad movie? No, it's not a bad movie, but it's just not, it's not to the standard that the first two held. And even with, you know, some of the other spin-offs like The Nun look really good, but outside of that, they're not overly good. And then as far as the Annabelle movies, I actually like two of the three of them. So I like the first one. I'm not that big of a fan of Creation, and then I'm a fan of Annabelle Comes Home. How will it serve as a conclusion to, you know, the Ed and Lorraine Warren story and their case files? And as I mentioned, you know, as far as tone and direction, is it going to be more serious and more dark and be more grounded, or is it going to be more along the lines of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It? Then I don't know if y'all saw, but they released a screenshot of kind of what the witch or, you know, or whoever the demonic figure is in this movie, and it looks like really bad CGI. So I hope and pray that with The Conjuring that this is not a true representation of what they're going to do, and that they really go back into those practical effects that they used a lot in the original. Because if we get a lot of stuff that looks like this, I promise you, I'm not having it. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to this movie, so I'll definitely be excited to see where they take this movie. The next of some of the more anticipated horror movies that are upcoming is the movie Keeper, directed by Oz Perkins. Quick synopsis on this one. A romantic anniversary trip to a secluded cabin turns sinister when a dark presence reveals itself, forcing a couple to confront the property's haunting past. This movie's premise sounds like it's pretty decent. I'm a sucker for haunted house films, similarly like The Conjuring and, you know, things of that nature. So if there's some paranormal element that's going on with this, then that's something that's gonna intrigue me. Now, I also do know what you all are thinking. Like, if you don't like Oz Perkins' previous films like that, what makes you think that this is gonna be good? And I don't know if this is going to be good, but the reason why I'm excited for it is because this is pretty much Oz Perkins' last chance with me. The sad part about it is there are elements that he does very well. I think he does pretty good and unique shots, just like his cinematography overall. His tone is typically pretty decent. The actors that he selects for certain characters, I think the selection is pretty well. The score in his movies is pretty good as well. It's just the writing. The writing is just not it. I just don't know what it is. From Longlegs and then The Monkey, and like we all know The Monkey is based off of Stephen King's story. So it's like you already kind of have your foundation there, and then it's just like everything about The Monkey outside of it being funny and some pretty good deaths, that's really about all it has. Like, it was pretty much no substance outside of that. I look forward to this just to give him one more shot and see if he can make a more high level and top-notch movie in this aspect. And then as far as this movie itself, I wonder if this is going to be one of those more atmospheric slow burn type movies, or just in general, like, what is the pacing going to be like how is this movie going to be shot? I would imagine that it's going to be more slow burn, considering it appears that it's, for the majority of the time, it's just going to be two people in the movie. So we'll see. But yeah, this is definitely one of the movies that I'm anticipating for the rest of the year. The next of some of the upcoming horror movies would be the movie VHS Halloween. And for people who aren't familiar with the VHS franchise, it's a series of found footage horror anthology films, different tapes and things of that nature that they find, and then they watch, like I said, different stories within each of those tapes, and similar-ish in a way to like the Creepshow movies, where it's like there's a movie, then there's different stories within the movie. So anybody that's a fan of the VHS franchise, and or if you're just a fan of found footage films in general, I think that this is going to be really solid for you all. The next movie that is highly anticipated is Black Phone 2. As Finn, now 17, struggles with life after captivity, his sister begins receiving calls in her dreams from the Black Phone and seeing disturbing visions of 3 boys being stalked at a winter camp known as Alpine Lake. This movie is the sequel to the Black Phone that came out just a few years ago. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Black Phone. I think that it did a lot of things well, and once again, kind of similar to Oz Perkins in a way, where it's like visually it was very appealing. I love the way that this movie was shot. Once again, some good characters, and if children are going to have a very strong and focal point in the film, and there's going to be a lot of scenes where they have to display their acting prowess, then you want to make sure that you get good child actors, and there was no problem with these. I think the child actors are perfectly fine. It's just, once again, the writing. The writing is like, what is going on? Like, some of the things is just like, okay, you could have just taken that out and it would have been all right. Like, we understand the concept of the Black Phone. We understand the concept of the grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, and all this good stuff. It's just what they're written to do sometimes, and then, plot wise, I don't know. It just doesn't quite mesh together for me. But I look forward to this one just because, like I said, the premise of the Black Phone was pretty solid. I like to see if they can make a better version of what they tried to implement the first time. So we'll see, and it clearly appears to be a continuation from the original in terms of the storyline. So we're not taking on completely fresh new cast and kids and all of that good stuff. So that'll be interesting to see how they expand the grabber's mythology, and will the ghost children get more backstory, or will there be any prequel elements? Just trying to get a good gauge on like where they're gonna be taking this film. But either way, I'm gonna be in the theater seated to watch it anyway. So yeah, it's certainly one of the more anticipated movies for this year. The next movie that I'm anticipating is Shelby Oaks, and I'm anticipating this movie for a completely different reason than all of the other ones that I mentioned prior. And the main reason why I'm anticipating this one is because this one is directed and produced by Chris Stuckman and Mike Flanagan. If anybody isn't aware of who Chris Stuckman is, he's a YouTuber who apparently now is turned filmmaker. And through the years, I've always used to watch his videos and people like Jeremy Johns and so on and so forth. And so seeing that somebody else was able to transition from being a YouTuber to a filmmaker, and clearly this movie has a pretty solid budget, and then getting to work with somebody who has some level of creative genius when it comes to horror movies like Mike Flanagan, I just think that creates a lot of potential for this film. And for me personally, that's something that I would love to do. Like, in a perfect dream job scenario, I would absolutely love to be involved with filmmaking. And it's not even necessarily about me being involved in the writing process, but because horror movies, and really a high percentage of them, don't really know how to execute scares well, I think that would be the biggest attribute or thing that I can bring to the horror space overall. Is this is a sick mind up here, so some of the things that I can come up with creating unique scares that you haven't really seen before, that don't feel rinse and repeat, and they're not just your typical jump scare, and something that is truly terrifying that gets under your skin. Like, I have a million ideas. So so I say all that to the point of seeing Chris Stuckman be able to do that, that's something that I would love to be able to do in the future. But giving a quick synopsis on this movie, a woman's desperate search for her long-lost sister falls into obsession upon realizing that the imaginary demon from their childhood may have been real. So yeah, I really look forward to where they're gonna take this movie. I've seen, some of the previews, through me watching movies like Together and Weapons recently. So I've seen some of the previews for it, and it seems like it's going to be pretty intriguing. And it doesn't appear that it is going to be this comedic tone, that it seems like it's going to be more serious and driven. So that's going to be something that I feel the genre actually needs, especially for this year, because as I mentioned before in previous videos, 2025 has just basically been the year of horror comedies. It seemed like almost every single movie you name, dang near, has been some level of a horror comedy. or they weren't meaning to be a horror comedy and they just had way too much levity in it. So I hope and anticipate that movies like this and The Conjuring are really able to execute that. And the next anticipated horror content that I'm looking forward to is not a movie, but it is Stranger Things season 5. I had to squeeze this in here just because I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things, and Stranger Things definitely falls in like that horror realm of things. Season 5 being the ending of this show, I'm also looking forward to seeing how they're gonna conclude pretty much everybody's story. Like almost every character in the show has had their own little struggles and deeper meaning and deeper stories, all from Eleven to Mike to Lucas to Dustin, whoever you name, like to Steve to Jonathan, like pretty much everybody. So how they all come together for one last season, and like, do we get more information around Vecna and Eleven and their relationship and background, and will this series end on more of a lighthearted note, or will it still end on a very darker type note? One rant that I have to go on is I really do not understand, why does it take so long for TV shows to release seasons now? Like it's absolutely ridiculous. It seemed like pre-2020, like you get dang near a new season every single year, and every season is going to have 10 plus episodes, all the episodes at least 45 minutes long. And I'm not just saying just about Stranger Things, I'm talking about TV shows in general. Like, think about what we used to get as far as the Game of Thrones of the world, and Breaking Bad, and The Walking Dead, all these shows that people love, and it's just like we just don't get them like that anymore. Like, there's absolutely no reason why it should take 2 to 3 years just to release a new season of a TV show. But that is all I have, Spooky Gang, as far as films that I most anticipate. Now, there are a few other ones that are still coming out that I know some others might be interested in, like the movie Him, which is like a football horror movie. But this was one of those movies I also was anticipating earlier in the year, but after I saw a preview, I think when I went to go see the movie together, when I saw a preview for it, I was just like, this doesn't seem like it's gonna be all that good. But hey, I mean, that's a movie that would be sort of, I guess, like an honorable mention. The Strangers Chapter 2. Then there's the movie Good Boy, features a man and his dog and some of the trials and tribulations that they go through in horror fashion. So that's also one that might be pretty good. But one thing that I wanted to mention also in terms of the movies that we've gotten, plus the movies that, that'll be coming up, is the difference in the quality of the horror movies that we get depending on the studio that made it. Because if we really look at it, Warner Bros is really washing the horror scene. Like, they are really crushing it this year. But some of the other ones also are good, and then there's one that sticks out like a sore thumb that is pretty bad. With some of the Warner Bros released movies, you have Sinners, Companion, Weapons, Final Destination Bloodlines, and then you're gonna have The Conjuring Last Rites. Then for Neon, which has been pretty solid, you have Together, The Monkey, 28 Years Later, is gonna be Shelby Oaks, and Keeper. Then with A24, you have Bring Her Back, you have Opus, and you have Death of a Unicorn. Then lastly, you have Blumhouse, which is The Black Phone 2, Five Nights at Freddy's, The Woman in the Yard, Wolfman, and Megan 2.0. Do y'all not see the difference between those studios and like how big of a drop off like it is from the first three that I named in comparison to the last? Like, come on. Like, I don't jump on Blumhouse for no reason. There's a reason. They made such great content between 2010 and 2020, and then now you're lucky to get one really good one per year, and that's about it. But I digress. Anyway, Spooky Gang, that is all I have. Y'all comment down below what are some of the most anticipated horror movies that are coming up that you look forward to watching, and honestly, what do you think of horror so far in 2025? As I mentioned in the intro, I think that it's pretty solid. Like I said, there hasn't really been too many lows. I mean, yeah, Wolfman, Megan 2.0, The Woman in the Yard, and Fear Street Prom Queen are the most notable, like, pretty bad ones. But outside of that, everything else has been in that 6 to 7 range on a scale to 10. So yeah, y'all comment that down below in terms of what you think of 2025 horror, and if you think it'll be capped off great with these upcoming horror movies. But yeah, y'all comment that down below. Y'all like and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 10K subs, and we're gonna keep grinding until we hit that. Y'all already know how we rocking. It's the same message every single week, but I keep saying it because y'all know how I'm rocking. So until next time, Spooky Gang, y'all know how we do. Y'all stay blessed and y'all stay spooky. Skills.